Have you ever asked yourself, why is there such a massive difference in the way we treat a friend who's struggling and when we talk to ourselves? We are so open and kind to them, yet so harsh on ourselves. Well, there's this book by Kristin Neff called Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, and she talks all about self-judgment, self-criticism, and her experience about going from talking negatively to herself to achieving self-compassion. The book mostly focuses on the benefits of self-compassion, firstly for our well-being, and secondly how it benefits relationships. We will delve into the details of each overarching argument.
Neff begins the book by defining the three core components of self-compassion. First, self-compassion requires self-kindness, which is being gentle and understanding with ourselves. The opposite of this is self-judgment, where we are excessively critical and judgmental. Second, it requires recognition of our common humanity, feeling connected with others in the experience of life. When we don't have this, we experience isolation, feeling alienated by our suffering. Third, it requires mindfulness, that we hold our experience in balanced awareness, rather than over-identifying with our pain and exaggerating it. We must achieve and combine these three essential elements in order to be truly self-compassionate.
The thing about self-compassion is that not a lot of people are consciously aware of this term, or they don't know the definition well enough to be able to implement this mindset into their life. We as humans often do not actively incorporate all or any of the three components into our stream of consciousness. We are overly critical towards ourselves, we often indulge in self-pity and forget that we're not the only ones with problems and attach ourselves to our negative thought patterns. And here's the big issue. Most of us think that self-judgment and our harsh internal commentary is normal. It's like we were wired to be mean to ourselves. I think we do this because subconsciously, somewhere deep in our brain, we find comfort in our traumas. I know this sounds problematic, but some people are the way they are because they don't want to heal. They don't want to get better. And when they're in that state of mind, it's difficult for anyone to save them. They're mentally and physically isolating themselves from the people around them, and this is what holds them captive. And so Neff believes that by practicing to adopt these three principles of self-compassion, we can offer comfort to ourselves while being able to depend on others to be cared for. This helps free ourselves from this prison in our mind. However, it's important to note that self-compassion should be viewed as a psychological immune system, that it doesn't make the stress disappear, but rather it changes our relationship to it. It is important to recognize these three components, as a lack of them is linked with poor well-being. In a study done by Lopez et al. In 2018, using the self-compassion scale, which measures all the positive and negative components of self-compassion, they found that a high score in the negative items of self-compassion, especially isolation and over-identification, was a strong predictor of depressive symptoms, but only in those with low self-compassion. This means that being hard and cold towards ourselves can significantly harm our mental health and may lead us to spiral into depression. The negative components of self-compassion are related to self-criticism, loneliness, and rumination.
Neff suggests that the tendency to ruminate is associated with both depression and anxiety. The latter is associated with ruminating about the future, and the former about past events. When we fail or hurt, the self-critical mind doesn't just notice the pain, it over-identifies with it. We become our failure, our sadness. So this over-identification with negative thoughts fuels negative emotion and hinders effective coping mechanisms, causing a prolonged depressive mood. Neff suggests that we can learn to be mindful by incorporating mindfulness practices into our everyday routine. Instead of focusing on what you need to do for the day ahead, direct your attention to how you feel in the moment. She states that when this becomes a habit, you are able to confront challenging situations by being aware of your emotions, rather than avoiding them, helping you achieve emotional balance. Research has shown support for this claim. A study by Campus et al. In 2016 found that observing self-kindness and common humanity were strong mediators for the relationship between frequency of meditation and happiness. In other words, the more mindful we are, the more we can adopt these components of self-compassion, which improve our overall mental health and well-being.
What this research is saying is that meditation increases observing self-kindness and common humanity. I would argue that it doesn't have to be in this specific direction. You can cultivate self-kindness and common humanity first, and meditation would just be a tool for you to further balance your emotions. Neff has incorporated many practices to cultivate self-compassion. For example, she suggests changing our critical self-talk to practice self-kindness. First, notice when you're self-critical towards yourself. Recognize what you say and the tone you say it in. Soften your voice and add a compassionate tone like you're talking to your friend, and reframe your observations from a negative to positive perspective.
Doing this exercise requires a certain level of awareness, which is an element of mindfulness, so I see how these three components can be interconnected. By viewing self-compassion as an island of calm, a refuge from the stormy seas of endless positive and negative self-judgment, we can finally stop asking, am I good enough? Providing ourselves with warm, supportive care we yearn for, which taps into our inner kindness, acknowledging that shared nature of our imperfect human condition, we can start to feel more secure, accepted, and alive.
This highlights the functional aspect of self-compassion as an internal emotional regulator, as an always available source of comfort and security, even when external circumstances are chaotic and painful, preventing us from being completely swept away by distress.
Neff has brought to light the relationship between self-compassion and interpersonal relationship. To quote the book, to have the type of close, connected relationships you really want with others, you first need to feel close and connected to yourself. This holds the idea that self-compassion is the foundation for connection, a prerequisite to foster positive relationship with others.
There are two sides to this claim. The first is that more self-compassion does not necessarily mean you will have compassion for others. Neff found that individuals who often judge themselves are still very caring towards other people. This is supported by Lopez et al. Study, where the two were not significantly related in terms of negative and positive affect or psychological well-being. The second side claims that they are related in interpersonal relationships. Neff states that self-compassionate people are better at creating close, authentic, and mutually supportive friendships than those who are self-judgmental. She draws to Davidson's study, where self-compassion increases our capacity for perspective-taking, where we put ourselves in others' shoes, feeling care and concern for those who are suffering. A recent study by Wang et al. In 2025 showed positive effects on helping behavior by inducing a mindset that considers the perspectives of others. Hence, this proves the claim that self-compassion gives us the ability and space for empathetic understanding. The relationship between self-compassion and compassion for others can be differentiated like this, in my opinion. You can definitely have compassion for others with a lack of self-compassion, but that kind of compassion is different if you are someone who is self-compassionate. It is more authentic and genuine because you care about yourself, so you want to reflect that care onto others.
Self-compassion has shown to be beneficial in romantic relationships as well. In the book, Neff reports that self-compassionate people have happier and more satisfying romantic relationships, being more accepting, caring, and intimate. The non-judgmental presence allows them to focus on connections rather than comparison, allowing self-compassion to inspire positive rather than the destructive emotions during relationship conflicts. This relates with Crocker and Cavello's study, where self-compassionate individuals tended to have more compassionate goals in close relationships, providing social support and encouraging interpersonal trust with a display of our more positive relationship behaviors. Therefore, when we are upset over our relationship issues, self-compassion allows us to soothe and calm the intensity of our feelings, being able to control criticism, contempt, blaming, and stonewalling, or what Gottman described as the four main problems behavior in conflict. This helps in conflict situations by validating our feelings, gently reminding ourselves that it's only natural for us to feel this way. The reserved response supports a study by Levin et al. In 2021, where they found that associations between self-compassion and interpersonal relationships present a bidirectional relationship, such that positive social relationships promote self-compassion, while self-compassion promotes relational and emotional well-being.
While there seems to be a myriad of research showing the benefits of self-compassion in relationships and also in Neff's book, does this mean that self-compassion is unconditionally good for every relationship?
Self-compassion benefits relationships by promoting self-esteem. A meta-analysis by Merce and Odgaard in 2023 indicated that high self-compassion benefits well-being and prevents psychological problems just as much as having high self-esteem. Additionally, Baker and McNulty's study in 2011 has brought intriguing research suggesting the predictive role of conscientiousness in males. They revealed a gender difference in their study. Although self-compassion in women was consistently good for relationship maintenance, men, however, depend entirely on their level of conscientiousness. The study concludes that men who are disciplined, responsible, and goal-oriented are more motivated to repair relationship mistakes with self-compassion, aligning with common beliefs that self-compassion is associated with more constructive responses to conflicts in relationship. But men with low level of conscientiousness may veer into self-indulgence, making excuses for irresponsible actions that let themselves off the hook to avoid discomfort.
Based on these findings, I think that maybe excessive self-compassion in men can hurt relationships, in the case that the individual also has low conscientiousness. Although they may understand their partner's concerns, their compassion may be translated into self-esteem and self-indulgence when they think their ego is being threatened, leading to less motivation to correct their interpersonal mistakes.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is seen in a lot of relationships nowadays, whether it's in real life or on social media. Inflated self-esteem can foster ego defensiveness and competition. People often become angry or jealous when their self-esteem is threatened by partners, leading to patterns of selfishness and game playing that roots many problems.
Then, do you think this argument overturns Neff's findings on the relational benefits self-compassion brings?
My answer is no, but I think the moderating role of conscientiousness provides insights on how self-compassion may be affected by other aspects. These divergent results, where conscientiousness in women is less of a necessary moderator to maintain the relationship, shed light on social-biological factors and gender. In the book, Neff discussed the societal script where women are socialized to be caregivers, deemed to be more caring, empathetic, and giving towards others than men. Despite expanding roles in the modern society, the expectation to be the ultimate nurturer at home hasn't changed. With societal expectations impacting women's internal drive for behavior, this brings insight on how self-compassion fosters positive relationships. Meanwhile, Gilbert's evolutionary approach to self-compassion complemented the biological factors of self-compassion that haven't been covered by Neff. Cognitive competencies to reason, mentalize, and have consciousness to recognize self-awareness have played a crucial role in social mentalities, allowing us to understand the nature of our sufferings and how to address it compassionately. Therefore, our previous experience, whether we receive love, neglect, or harmed, have a major impact on the physiological processes of hormonal and nervous response for caring behavior, or motivating self-compassion behaviors. Therefore, recognizing the social biological factors that shape self-compassion, and by being consciously aware of the self-compassion mindset, help us to understand how self-compassion strengthens relationship dynamics and to be truly aware of our inherent interconnectedness and how it nourishes us with benevolence, benefiting our relationship with others. With the conceptual nature of self-compassion, more discussions on the experimental nature is needed to understand the mediating role of culture and situational factors in the development of internal sources of self-compassion, and how it influences decision-making in social contexts that moderates relational outcomes.
So we've covered a lot of content regarding self-compassion, and there also has been a lot of research done on this topic. The general consensus is that in order to have self-compassion, consistent practice is required. I don't think you need to possess all three components of self-compassion in order to have it, but it's all about working to be kinder and more open-minded towards yourself and others. To quote Neff again, in many ways, self-compassion is like magic, because it has the power to transform suffering into joy. When we give ourselves compassion, the tight knot of negative self-judgment starts to dissolve, replaced by a feeling of peaceful, connected acceptance. As I've mentioned previously, having self-compassion doesn't mean we are suddenly pain-free. It just changes our perspectives on dealing with it. It makes our relationship with it slightly better and easier. If we try to incorporate self-compassion into our lives, we become someone who suffers with pain rather than